Knysna elephants may be the stuff of myth and legend, but there are bold plans that could see elephant roam the coast once again. The Eden to Addo corridor project aims to call back the herd by establishing a mega park with natural linkages.
Those who believe in it call it the dream. Herds of wild elephant roaming freely through the landscape across the Cape, re-establishing ancient migration paths. That's the big vision of the Eden to Addo Corridor initiative, linking the Western and Eastern Cape through a natural path.
Probably 1 up to 3 elephants still left in the Knysna forests. Evidence has been seen of their droppings and people regularly come across the evidence. And these elephants are symbols of Eden to Addo in that they are free roaming but yet unable to move due to fragmentation of the landscape. And that's exactly why we are establishing corridors. Corridors connect protected areas, and the Garden Route National Park is a protected area, as is the Titicaca National Park. And between the two, we are establishing connections.
3 existing reserves, the Garden Route National Park, the Baviaanskloof Reserve, and the Addo Elephant National Park will be linked by means of natural corridors. It will create one mega reserve where plant and animal life can thrive and communities living within the area can pursue environmentally sustainable livelihoods.
What we have here in terms of the Eden to Addo corridor is the most biodiverse corridor worldwide. And we've just recently realized that. We without looking into this whole corridor concept, which is a new concept in conservation terms, we've come in at a different angle and realized what treasures we have here in our own backyard. So I'm sure that will also increase the tourism angle. We'll be going to the Wilderness Congress in Spain in early October, and the word will spread that we have the most biodiverse corridor worldwide. Over 9,000 species of fynbos, and then there's thicket and there's forest, succulent karoo, nama karoo, and all of that is very interesting for people, and of course the bird life that brings.
A conservation corridor is a strip of land that links existing protected areas. It ensures ecological connectivity for species and people. The concept is based on the realization that a fenced park or reserve does not adequately allow for natural patterns and processes. Fragmentation of the landscape, specifically in terms of human land use, causes the death of species and therefore a decrease in biodiversity. This process needs to be reversed in these identified corridors.
So we're getting private landowners between the two areas to protect their land by either forming a conservancy, a protected environment, or private nature reserve.
One of the key challenges in pursuing the Eden to Addo corridor has been clearing invasive alien vegetation. It's been the single biggest threat to biodiversity in the region.
One of our biggest challenges in this corridor has been dealing with alien vegetation. When I say alien vegetation, I'm talking about Australian acacias, gum trees, what most people know in the Western Cape as black wattle. Horrible stuff. My real area of interest is helping landowners to get rid of as much black wattle as possible. So what we've done in the Robberg corridor and the nearby Keerboom's River corridor is we've introduced biological control agents, little insects that either burrow into the seed pod and render the seeds useless, or actually prevent the seed from even forming, so that all we're left with is a skeleton tree that bears no seeds. But then of course we have to go in with chainsaws and loppers and things and get rid of that, the big standing trees. The focus on alien vegetation is largely because it uses so much water, and water security is a massive issue, particularly in Southern Africa is considered a semi-arid country, and it's also a biological barrier to wildlife, particularly birds like pollinators. It displaces our beautiful indigenous vegetation.
Individual landowners within the corridor are getting on board with the concept of the Eden to Addo Conservation Area, and many are already implementing their conservation plans, which even have new economic spin-offs.
When we bought the farm in 1976, it was a wild area and we developed it as a farm and really weren't that concerned with the nature areas. We were concerned in making money out of agriculture. But as the years went on, and after I came out of university, after doing environmental science, I realized that we needed to do something more concrete for conservation. And I got together with the Eden to Addo, and we decided that we were going to do the Robberg corridor, which is connecting the sand parks in Harkeville to the Robberg Peninsula. And it's a vital biodiversity link, and it needs to be kept open. And we are lucky enough to have about 100 hectares on the coast, which we have now declared a PE through the government. So that's been legislated onto our title deed. It's protected for initially 30 years. And then once it comes up again, we will then protect it for 99 years, which is basically in perpetuity. And it's a vital link, and it's so important for farmers to understand that you can farm and you can conserve at the same time. And the world is getting much more populated, and areas like this are in dire need of conservation. And farmers need to take a more modern approach to what they're doing.
Local communities are also benefiting from the conservation efforts. They are contracted to clear alien vegetation.
Actually very important, create a lot of jobs and mainly attract some visitors to the area, and actually what it also done is it's make our nature and environment looks better.
The Eden to Addo corridor will not only restore biodiversity, it will become a big tourism attraction for the region. This will in turn create more economic opportunities for the people in areas like Kranshoek.
To find out more about plans for and the importance of natural corridors like Eden to Addo, we earlier spoke to conservationist Ian McCullam in our Cape Town studio. Welcome, Ian, and thank you so much for joining us. Can you quickly just unpack for us the concept of a natural corridor? What does this mean, and what role can it play in restoring ecological balance?
I think the first thing to understand is that we have at the moment various wildlife areas in southern Africa, including South Africa, which are largely isolated one from the other. And once you get familiar with ecological thinking, you realize that it's very, very important for the sake of biodiversity, the strengthening of gene pools, that the different species are able to migrate from one particular area into another. In other words, as long as you have what we call an island mentality, as long as you have these little islands of wild areas, that in fact is ultimately a recipe for extinction. So it makes sense then that if you could open up links, if you could open up corridors between the various reserves, the various wildlife areas, you have every chance of strengthening the gene pool and therefore enhancing the welfare of the wild animals that live there. With corridors, as you will see, and I would imagine as this interview will progress, we see tremendous opportunities for people to come and witness firsthand what in fact is happening with respect to what I sometimes like to refer to as the human-animal interface.
Ian, so let's look at particularly the Addo Elephant Park region and look at the prospects for strengthening this gene pool that you talk about. How important is the natural corridor specifically for this area?
This is a very important question because it's a difficult initiative, make no mistake, and I really stand in huge admiration of what Joan Burning has done with respect to the Eden to Addo initiative. The point is this, you see, is that Eden to Addo is an area which stretches from just outside of Knysna all the way through to the Addo Elephant Park. Now this traverses well established agricultural areas, farmlands, and of course, as you already know, it also includes the Bavians National Park. Thank heavens that these parks are actually there. But your big challenge here is going to be to convince the farmers that a corridor opening up between the southern parts of South Africa, i.e. Knysna, and the eastern parts, Addo, is to be able to convince them of ultimately how important this is for the well-beings of animals.
Talk to us a little bit about, through your experience and your expeditions and your journeys in these corridors, how have you found that in addition to the farmers, the broader communities have embraced these corridors, or have these corridors been a source of tension for community members?
What I want to share with you now is an expedition which I undertook with a great friend of mine, Ian McCullam, and an outstanding backup crew, where we traveled over 5,000 kilometers through 6 southern African countries last year. We started on the west coast of Namibia, that was at the Skeleton Coast, and we walked and we cycled and we kayaked these 5,000 kilometers, following what we called the ancient elephant migration clusters or elephant migration routes. So the point of it was to raise awareness of corridor conservation. And this is where I come to your question regarding the local people. It was when we met the local people that you realize how important it is to have them involved in any of these initiatives. If you want to protect wild animals in wild areas, empower the people to know that these animals in fact belong to them. You empower the people who live there. Give them good reason as to why they should be the ones who are looking after these particular areas. And so, as you can imagine, if people are disempowered, this provides and evokes quite considerable negative reactions from people. An old psychological saying, it's called passive aggression.
Right.
People will basically not cooperate in a way that you would want them to. As I say, until you empower them and to say, look, this place actually belongs to you. We, in fact, need your help.
How much awareness do you think you've been able to bring to this very important issue, and whether there's just a greater appreciation for the restoration of migration patterns for animals and particularly elephants from your efforts?
It's very, very difficult to assess exactly how much awareness we have been able to bring to people as a result of this journey that we undertook. Raising awareness is always inch by inch, little by little. And if I may say this, it's probably a bit philosophical here, and I'm not going to apologize for this, is that every ounce of difference that I can make as an individual, even if I do not see the fruits of what it is that I'm trying to do in my lifetime, that is not the point. Let it be for our children. Let it be for the children's children. And it's, you know, it's quite interesting. Why I'm speaking like this is because apart from raising awareness and speaking about the importance of corridor conservation, we also asked another very important question while we were on this journey last year. We asked individuals of all kinds, who and what do you think you would be without wild animals in your life? In other words, if there were no wild animals left, how would you feel? Well, let me tell you, there wasn't one answer out of the many, many people that we interviewed where it was met with an answer of indifference. There wasn't one. Every one of them had varied responses like, it would be unthinkable. We would be lonely. What an indictment on human beings. And so, now I put on a psychiatric cap just for half a minute. I asked the question, why? And I think perhaps deep down, we know that human identity is ultimately impossible outside of an understanding of a meaningful relationship with all living matter, including, obviously, the wild animals in our lives. I know that if I knew there were no wild animals left, I think I'd probably be very, very happy to leave this planet.